I'm coming back to the very idea of possibility of change in consciousness, and especially in academic setting, in academic context, which we never had before. Academia resists every subjective approach to knowledge. The very concept of consciousness is only the concept, some kind of byproduct, biological anomaly or something which happened, we do not know why and don't know how to deal with. But having come from another background of the Vedic paradigm of Indian knowledge and Sri Aurobindo, we have completely different view on consciousness. We believe that consciousness is a fundamental reality which manifests all things and forms. And forms are byproduct. Matter is the product. Matter is the enterprise of the spirit. This is our deep belief. Now, how to link the two? In time of development, where the Vedic rishis started to do this transformational work on nature, when they wanted to charge matter and nature with the spirit, to transform it, to make it more supple, to make it more responding to the spirit, carrying it, making it embodiment of the spirit. From that time on, there were many attempts to do it, and that was called the sacrifice. The sacrifice is the key word of the Vedic rishis, making this nature sacred. So they had already realization of the spirit and wanted to bring it down to matter and make matter and nature the embodiment of the spirit. They were talking of immortality. Immortality is the final stage of transformation. We don't speak this language anymore. Nobody mentions immortality. Other than the immortality of the soul, nobody speaks of immortality of nature, of the body, of the bodies we have. We have many bodies. In the work they discovered that we have not only one body, but many bodies. Physical body is only the surface. There is vital body with many layers. There is mental body with many layers. And it goes beyond to the overmental realms, which they call svar, and three rochanas, three luminous realms beyond the mind. And then there is supramental, and there is the transcendental. And all they are there present in us. We have no idea about these things. We think we are material beings, studying our material frame, working with it all the time, beating around the bush, nothing works, but we are still trying, frustrated. So this inner look we require. So how to bring this consideration into academia? How to start to think differently? How to deconstruct all our domains of knowledge in the light of this spiritual discovery? Sri Aurobindo was the pioneer in that way. He came back to the Vedic vision of transformation of nature. We do not have anybody in between. It was lost from the time of Upanishadic rishis. Nobody speaks about of transformation of nature. So for Sri Aurobindo, rediscovery of this ancient knowledge and putting it into the new disciplines, into the domains of knowledge, into the activities, into business, into management, you name it, into our life activities, was the major task. And that is what he is speaking of, mentioning India. India is the guru of the world, and in that sense has to bring that ancient knowledge back. But the knowledge of the Vedas, not the knowledge of the Advaita. Advaitic knowledge, to hell with all this world, and going back to Brahman and disappearing in Brahman is not his ideal. He's not speaking about it. Well, that also creates a lot of problem with today's spiritual knowledge in India, because all the gurus are based on this Advaitic knowledge. They speak about Brahman, about the beyond, where we have to go and disappear. That is called mukti, to be liberated. I was already mentioning before, when Natkarni was here, he was interviewing, I think, the best dancer in India, and she was telling that he asked her, what would you like to realize in this life? And she said, I would like to achieve the state in which I will never be born again. I said, why? You're so beautiful, you're talented, and you don't want to be born. How come? This is the imprint we have from Advaitic vision. So how to come back to this, that spirit and matter are one? So we go back to the Upanishadic rishis, we come to the Vedic rishis and look into their paradigm and learn from them, in the light of Sri Aurobindo, what we can do today for our studies. So this presentation I already was doing several times, but what is interesting here is this vision how matter and spirit are one, how they saw it. So, as Sri Aurobindo says in the synthesis, the central aim of knowledge is the recovery of the self, of our true self-existence. So knowledge is necessary for one reason: to become real, to become immortal, to find our true self. True self not in a sense which is beyond only, but also here, within the nature. We spoke about three Vedic epistemologies already, about Adhibhuta, Adhidaiva and Adhyatma, and this is the quotation from his book on Upanishads. In the ancient conception of the universe, our material existence is formed from the five elemental states of matter, ethereal, aerial, fiery, liquid, and solid. Everything that has to do with material existence in us called the elemental, Adhibhuta. Regarding the becomings, I am always coming back to these basics because that is what we have to see. So there is a part in us which is relating to our surface consciousness, which deals with our becomings in terms of time and space. We are the creatures or the beings which are stretched in time and space. We have our space body and we have our time bodies. We never thought of time bodies, but they are there, present. And all of them are built with these elements of ether, air, fire, water, and matter or earth, solid. Now this is when we look at this and study it, we will be, approaching it through scientific approach to knowledge, so to say. We will be scientists. We will examine how matter works. But in this material, there move non-material powers, manifesting through the mind force and life force that work upon matter, and these are called gods or devas. Everything that has to do with the working of non-material in us is called Adhidaiva, that which pertains to the gods. Now, the faculties of consciousness present within the material frame are non-material powers. And somebody asked Sri Aurobindo, and I'm always referring to this, where are those non-material powers? We saw only electron, we saw the nuclear, we didn't see the non-material powers there. We go deep, deep into matter, and where are they there? Can you show us where the vital force, the mental consciousness is hiding there? And he says, and his answer is profound, It is in the relations. In the relation of electron to the nuclear. In that power which holds electron to the nuclear, there is a vital and mental force. Otherwise, why should electron be held with the nuclear? On what ground? We will say that this is the law of nature. We call it the law of nature. So that law is the mental force. We never thought of it. It's a profound answer. For me, it is answering everything. There is no more difference between material and spiritual. If the law of nature is the mental force which is determining all the relations of electron and nuclear and all the clusters and all the build-up of the whole world and all our material bodies, then, of course, they are the gods there, non-material powers, the laws. They are present, the faculties of consciousness. Adhidaiva, so the gods are those faculties. They are not some gods sitting on the clouds, but they are gods as powers which are building up this universe from within. So, but not above non-material, above containing them, greater than they is the self or spirit, Atman. And everything that has to do with this highest existence in us, and notice Sri Aurobindo always emphasizes, in us, everything which has to do with this highest existence in us is called spiritual adhyatma. So these are three Vedic epistemologies. So we can turn without, we can turn within, and we have these faculties of consciousness with which we constantly deal. Did you notice that we are mainly 95% are living inside? We are thinking, feeling, planning, projecting. We are constantly living inside. It's maybe 5% we are living outside. When we have some accident, suddenly we become aware of the physicalities. We are dealing with physical world, but living inside constantly. So the educational project would be to address these forces which are inside, how to make them efficient, and to deal with nature, to deal with matter. Not to deal with matter and thinking that that is the education. There's some wrong approach to education altogether. So these are the levels. Adhyatmic, the most central, Adhidaiva is in between, and Adhibhuta on the surface. This quotation I always use also because it explains how this material world carries the consciousness. So the unknown is not the unknowable, says Sri Aurobindo. It need not remain the unknown for us, unless we choose ignorance or persist in our first limitations. For to all things that are not unknowable, all things in the universe, there correspond in that universe faculties which can take cognizance of them, and in man, the macrocosm, the microcosm, these faculties are always existent and at a certain stage capable of development. We may choose not to develop them. Where they are partially developed, we may discourage and impose on them a kind of atrophy. But fundamentally, all possible knowledge is knowledge within the power of humanity. All possible knowledge is within the power of humanity. Why? How come? Because we are the product of this knowledge. This body is the product. It was built by those forces, by those laws of nature, by those devatas working hard to bring all those, elements into clusters into clusters, evolve, change them, until this body is ready to project consciousness directly. Now I'm speaking to you, And this mental consciousness is flowing out through this body directly. Before it couldn't. It didn't have the instrument. It didn't have the body. Now it can. It built the body. So you see, there is no difference between spiritual and material from this point of view. This body is the spiritual enterprise. And it is going on. It's not the end. Sri Aurobindo says, a human being is the transitional being. It's not the final product. There is more. This body will evolve. It will change. More forces will come, greater powers, greater consciousness, greater capacity is on the way. We will not stop here at this stage. So there we want to go. We want to go in that direction. We want to see what is coming. We want to welcome those powers. We want to consciously participate in this change, as Vedic rishis tried. They were consciously invoking these universal forces into their material frame to change it, to make it more supple, to make it more responding to the spirit. This is the spiritual enterprise. And of course, on this ground, you can immediately think of all things around you, that they are not just things. If you look at things as they are, what do you really, how they are? No, this bottle holds the water inside, and these cups on the table, and table on the carpet, and carpet on the floor, and chair, and I am on the chair, and you are on the chairs, and we are in this room. This room holds us all, and it is on the ground of the soil, and this soil is on this planet, and this planet is flying with a huge speed around the sun, and the sun is around the galaxy, and the whole Big Bang is moving in all directions. We are constantly occupying a new space, constantly in a new time, and still we are fixed by some laws of nature, by some devatas. This bottle knows how to hold the water. This table knows how to hold the bottle. This body knows how to sit in this chair, knows how to speak. You know how to receive, how not to receive. We all know how to be. Because there are corresponding forces to everything, because they build these bodies, they build this world. They are here. They are not going anywhere. They're just evolving more and more. Okay, and so if you look at this, if we turn our consciousness, our faculties outside, we will see this world as we see it objectively, so to say. If we turn our faculties within, we will see subjectively ourselves. So, as it is said in the Upanishad, the wise Vedic rishi closed his eyes, ears, and turned his consciousness within to discover his inner being. We can discover our outer being and our inner being. It depends where we turn our faculties. If we look outside, we see objectively the being. When we look inside, we will see subjectively the being. So this was the biggest problem for the yoga in general, because for the Vedic rishis, this was not the yoga. This yoga came later. Either you look inside and discover your inner self, or you look outside and discover your outer self. So when you are active, you cannot be perceptive of the inner being. It's very difficult. If you are perceptive of the inner being, you become inactive outside. You forget about the world. You cannot hold both for some reason. Doesn't work. Either active or perceptive. Choose. When we become active, we forget about our inner self. When we remember our inner self, we become inactive outside. All methods of yoga were developed on this ground. You have to stop even breathing to get deeper into the inner self. Even breathing was a problem, an obstacle for the inner perception. The techniques were developed. Pranayama was developing exactly that technique, how to stop breathing. What for? To gather consciousness within, to be attentive to the inner reality. What Sri Aurobindo was doing, he was connecting the two. In his room, he was walking. He had walking meditation for many years. People even heard him boom, boom, walking. He was stepping strong. There are holes in his floor. They're covered now, but these holes are known from his walking. He was bringing this inner perception into the indriyas of action, as he called them. Because indriyas of action steal our light. And it was known in the Veda, they were called panis. And when rishis invoke the dawn to come or the sun, they say, let panis sleep. Because when panis awake, these activities, these actions of consciousness, they will steal away inner perception. This is a big problem for our psychology. How to be active and perceptive. How to be spiritual in action and in life. How to bring those domains, those devatas into the activities of our everyday life. So the Vedantic yoga, rishis of the Upanishads, had another approach, about which Sri Aurobindo speaks in the Kena Upanishad. They connected the inner self with the outer being through the faculties of consciousness, which changed their attitude. Our seeing, hearing, speaking, thinking, they changed their attitude. They were not hunting the delight for themselves anymore. They rejected self-satisfaction, turned within, staying without, turned within, and became consciously passive, attentive to the presence of the spirit, inviting the innermost light to the surface. And it comes in flashes, as Sri Aurobindo says. It comes once, and you know, and you got an experience. You can't forget this. But then it goes away, fades away. Then you again have to do the same, again to invite, again not to run for self-satisfaction of senses. Again you have to turn them and become consciously passive and attentive to the inner being. And again it will come, and then again it doesn't come. And until it becomes more frequent, until it is totally flooding the surface nature with the presence of the spirit. There is only one possibility for the spirit to come to the surface. It is through the faculties of consciousness. There is no other way. These are the bridges. These are the mediators of the inner and outer. So when we think about change in our nature, this is the way. There is no other way. We have to re-educate ourselves. We have to educate our faculties in a way that they will be perceptive of the inner self and allow it to come to the surface. Sri Aurobindo beautifully describes this moment when everything, everywhere, will be the presence of the spirit. Every touch, every thought, every word will be nothing but Brahman. Brahman itself. Spirit. Full of joy, knowledge, peace, love. This is our aim, to embody the spirit, to bring it into the nature. So there, if I were to draw, I would draw from Adhyatma to Adhibhuta lines, arrows. We have to connect Adhyatma to Adhibhuta over Adhidaiva. And in today's world, in today's perception, we can be either perceptive or active. We cannot do it. We do not know the technique. We do not know how to really connect our inner self with our outer being. So, since we have 3 different levels or where these faculties can be active, we can speak that on each level we call them differently. I do not want to go into this today. Maybe it is too much for us already. But this idea of connecting in and outer, there is much knowledge waiting for us to discover. If you go deeper into this, you will see how beautifully it is already known to some beings like Sri Aurobindo or the Mother. It is already there. The knowledge is there. The technique is there. We can really follow it and apply it in our educational setting also. So if you look at these, we will see that Adhidaiva is about our faculties, but Adhyatma, where the faculties are together with the spirit, with Purusha, because the faculties were generated from the universal Purusha, universal self. Purusha opened up all the faculties one by one, the speech, the breath, the sight, hearing, and from these the world was created. When his mouth broke forth, from the mouth word came out, Vak, from Vach Agni was born. The very aspiration in nature was born, as aspiration to express oneself. His nostrils broke forth, from the nostrils breath, prana, from pranavayu was born, wind. His eyes broke forth, from the eyes sight, chakshu, chakshusha aditya, and from the chakshu the sun was born, the light. His ears broke forth, from the ears hearing, and from the hearing space came into existence. So space is needed because he wants to hear. The light is needed because he wants to see. Otherwise, why this light is here? Or this space? What for? So this is the subjective viewing of the universe, of the rishis. So on the level of Purusha, they cannot be known in terms of faculties as we know them here. And we have to study them differently. We have to have altogether different psychology, adhyatmic psychology, which we don't have yet. But we hope to develop it with the help of Sri Aurobindo. Oops. So this is what we called operations, secret operations. He calls them secret operations on the level of Adhyatma, faculties on the Adhidaiva level, and senses, as we know them, on the level of the body. But these are the same faculties of consciousness, only viewing, looking outside or inside. Okay, I will stop here and open for your comments, questions, and maybe some ideas how to at all approach it, what to do for us who work in education. Can we bring this knowledge? Can we really do something?